Hello.
Hello, Mark.
Yes.
Yes, sir. This is Izzy from MMA Jam Live. How you doing this evening?
I'm okay. How are you?
Not too bad. It's a tremendous honor speaking with you. Did we catch you at a good time?
Yeah, I just got off the plane, man. It's been a long flight, but I'm okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. It's an honor. Thank you. Okay, now you have a highly decorated amateur background. You won the NCAA championship at Ohio State. You competed at the '92 Summer Olympics in Barcelona. At any point shortly after your amateur career, did you ever consider professional wrestling, or was MMA always the plan?
Yeah, most definitely. I always thought about possibly doing that because I watched it quite a bit, but MMA definitely took over when that started. That's definitely what I wanted to do, but even in doing MMA, I ended up doing some pro wrestling over in Japan quite a bit, and I found that fantastic, amazing. It was so cool, so neat, much more difficult than people think, but I had a blast doing it.
You know, it's interesting, given your persona, your character, that and it's just you being you. But I always felt like that if you didn't do MMA, that you would make a perfect professional wrestler.
Well, I think I would have did pretty good myself. As far as the wrestling part goes, I think I was good at that, and I could have handled the rest of the stuff pretty good. I think the fact that, Shamrock got hired first, and he did a pretty good job for him, and then they brought in Tank Abbott and Dan Severn, and I don't think they were too happy with those two guys. I think I was kind of the next MMA guy that they were looking at, but I think sometimes you got to be right place at the right time. I think they decided not to take a chance on me, and I do feel like I would have been the best out of those four guys at professional wrestling. So that would have been neat, but it didn't happen. So that's the way it goes.
Now things ended up working perfectly for you. You busted onto the MMA scene in 1996, winning the UFC 10 and UFC 11 tournaments. Looking back, how would you describe that portion of your career, and what were your expectations prior to stepping into the octagon for the very first time?
Well, honestly, I'd watched UFC 1. I'd watched them all 1 through 9, and I was really kind of looking for what I was going to do with the rest of my future, because my wrestling career was coming to an end. I was 31, and that's back then it was you're heading out of your prime, so I really didn't know what I was going to do. So I knew I had to find a way to get into the MMA world, and I just waited my chance. And when I did get in there, I fully expected to dominate, and just for the reason wrestlers are extremely competent people, and I just felt like it wasn't going to be fair, because I felt like I had too many advantages in the octagon, and as it turns out, I was right, and my game plan it worked to perfection, and it was just incredible when I won UFC 10. The emotions were overwhelming, and did kind of change my life that night. But just so grateful and thankful that somebody was able to put together this sport and make it happen, and be a part of it for not just the beginning. I made it for 15 years, so I was proud of at UFC 100 when I beat Stephan Bonner. That's still one of my proudest moments.
That was definitely incredible. Now, speaking of, my favorite all-time Mark Coleman moment came on February 7th at UFC 12 when you defeated Dan Severn to become UFC heavyweight champion, defeating the Beast by submission in under 3 minutes. What made that moment special to me was the fact that you defeated Severn, a man who was on a 9-fight winning streak, so quickly. How does that moment stack up against all of your other career accomplishments?
Well, it's definitely right up there with all of them, but I've been very, the Lord's been very good to me and blessed me with a lot of highlights of my life, and it's pretty hard to separate. Even you go back to the NCAA champion in wrestling, it's hard to top that because for 23 years of my life, that was the goal that I set, to be an NCAA champion, and it was a lot more difficult than I planned on it being. And when I finally did get that, that was, that was overwhelming. And then you move on to, I took second in the world as well before the Olympics. That was big, making the world team, and then just making the Olympic team was huge. Big disappointment when I went over there. I planned on doing much better. I appreciate it now a lot more than I did back then. And then you go to the UFC, and UFC 10 is hard to top because that was the beginning, and that was everybody out there learning on the job, and so I really wasn't sure what was going to happen out there. But that night, you got 3 fights in one night, and the only thing that hurts on your body is your hand. That's a pretty good evening of fighting, and just like I said, I can't hardly separate it. 10, 11 was a big disappointment with nobody in the finals, but 10 and 12 were huge. And then of course went on a losing streak, and then to be able to come back and win the Pride Grand Prix, it's just hard to separate those. They're just all right up there with each other, very close to my best memories. And then like I said, I was really happy with being able to come back and put together a good training camp for once, and come out there and beat a very good Stephan Bonner when I was 44 years old. So I mean, it's hard to separate them. They're all just great moments, and I was lucky to be there and accomplish what I set out to do.
Now, you mentioned the losing streak, which spanned 4 fights. Now, in hindsight, would you say that was the toughest time of your career?
Yeah, I guess most definitely, because I rose up so fast to the top, and as quick as I rose up, reality's a slap in the face, and it probably did go to my head. It didn't probably. It went to my head. I started thinking I was really good, reading about myself, and I did slack off in my training, thinking I was going to go out there and beat Maurice Smith without even training. In hindsight, how stupid was that? And yes, I paid the price, but it was a price that I needed to pay because I needed that kind of humbling ass whooping to put me back on track. Unfortunately, I blew my knee out, my first major injury, and I blew my ACL out like 2 weeks later, preparing for a rematch with Maurice Smith. Then that set me back another 6 months, and then I had to come back. I came back probably a little too quick. Fought Pete Williams, obviously not one of my better nights, and then I do still feel to this day that I beat Pedro Hazel fair and square, but the judges didn't think so, and at that point it was pretty low time for me. So I guess it was.
Actually, I find a lot of inspiration in your words. You mentioned that you thought you were so good, and I guess it led to this mentality building up. And I could definitely relate to that because, to be honest, I don't, as a writer and as the host of this show, I never listen to a replay of this show, and I never read any articles because of reasons you stated. I don't want to get to a point where I'm totally satisfied with what I'm doing, if that makes sense.
Well, yes, it makes a lot of sense, and that's exactly what happened. It's a lot easier to become the champion than it is to stay the champion because a lot of guys, they can't handle what comes with being a champion. There's all of a sudden your plate's empty, and then all of a sudden your plate's so full you can't even think straight, and you stop doing what got you to the top to begin with. You got to be somewhere for this interview or do something for this, and well, it's a lot easier than going to practice. So, it's something that I needed, and I think it happens to a lot of people. But no, I started reading too much about myself and believing too much, and obviously that's not the case. There's no easy fights ever. A lot of times the hardest thing about preparing for a fight is preparing. So the preparation that goes into getting ready to fight, that's the grind. Embrace the grind, and it's a grind. It doesn't matter who you're fighting. You still have to be ready to walk in an octagon, planning on fighting one of the best guys in the world. And if you start reading too much and this and that, well, yeah, maybe you take somebody too lightly, and you get your butt whooped. So these guys are able to stay champions for so long. I got so much respect for them because there's so many people pulling at them for their time, want them to be here, want them to do this and that, and sometimes they have to say no because they got to get prepared for one of the toughest fights of their life coming up. And if you're out shooting movies or making appearances or doing this, well, you're not going to be a champion for long. So the guys that are able to stay champions, I got incredible respect for those guys.
Now, after that, Mark, after that 4-fight losing streak, you didn't get kept down for too long. After that, immediately rattled off 6 straight wins, which includes your memorable performance during the 2000 Pride Open Weight Grand Prix, which you dominated in winning. Now, going into that tournament, how important was it to get back on track, and how gratifying was that victory?
Well, that's all that mattered to me. The 4-fight losing streak, it did me good because certainly most everybody counted me out, and that motivated me. All the negative press, and that's a good time to read about yourself when people are talking crap about you. That's a good time to read about yourself because it motivates you. And I don't want to make excuses, but I was having some health issues during that 4-fight streak. My thyroid was messed up, and I really didn't know what was wrong with me because I just didn't have energy. I didn't have energy to go train hard, this and that. But finally, I got the blood work done from the doctor, and I got on thyroid medication, and almost immediately I could feel. I thought I was 32 years old, and I thought I was old and done. I thought the old saying, "You turn old overnight," was true. I just couldn't believe, my athletic career was. I was thinking, looking up in the sky every day after those fights, and I had some bad thoughts. I thought maybe it's just you're done at 32 years of age, but it had a lot to do with my thyroid. And once I got on the medication, I felt myself again, and when I was able to train again and do some paybacks to the training partners that I was with that were getting a few good shots in on me, it was paybacks for them too, because once I started feeling good, my confidence came back, and I knew I had to go back and do what I did that won me these things in the first place, and that's eat, sleep, and train. And that's what I did for 7 months. I lived for that Pride Grand Prix, and my confidence was there. I did go in that tournament. You know, it's hard to believe, but I did go in that tournament thinking I was going to win that thing. And in my mind, I felt like it was going to be me and Volchanshin in the finals. It was supposed to be a 20-minute time limit, and I figured I was going to take him down and ground and pound him for 20 minutes and come out the champion. But then they changed it to a no time limit the day before, and my jaw kind of dropped open because I really didn't know how I was going to be able to finish Igor Volchanshin because the guys fought for over an hour in one night before, over an hour and a half, 3 fights in one night. So yeah, I wasn't going to punch him to death, and I knew he could go on forever. So I just when they said it was a no time limit, I started getting a little bit nervous because I didn't know how I was going to be able to finish this guy. But fortunately, I did get him stuck up in the corner, and I couldn't believe. I mean, I counted him. I think he took 16 knees to the head, and the man's got a hard head because it didn't knock him out. He just, I was surprised that he tapped out because he's not the type of guy that taps out. But I guess he was in a situation where he knew he was stuck and there was going to be another day. But when I felt him tapping on my stomach, you've seen the results. My emotions were way out of control, and I almost hurt myself worse after the fight than I did during the fight. But that meant the world to me, and because a lot of people running their mouth about I was done, finished, this and that, and everybody likes to shut people up. So that was huge, and that put me back on top and gave me a new life in the sport. And then I went on and lasted about another 10 years after that, 10 or 12 years. I don't know what it was.
I think, what was special for me about that fight at the Pride Grand Prix, Openweight Grand Prix final was the fact, like you mentioned, trying to knock that guy out was just virtually impossible, but the fact that you managed to do it, I think that's what really hit home for me, and I think you certainly shut a lot of mouths after that. I mean, there was really nothing else anyone could say.
Well, yes, it was. That's what I'm saying. I was thinking the same thing. I'm not a great submission guy. I'm a ground and pounder, and I really didn't want no part of him on my feet. Let's be realistic. Let's be realistic here. I really didn't want no part of him on my feet because I watched him drop many people with that big overhand right, and but then at the same time, I just didn't visualize how I was going to be able to finish this guy because you weren't allowed to knee a guy. They changed the rules the day before as well. You weren't allowed to knee a guy in the head. When the one way I thought maybe I could finish him is get him in a front headlock and knee him to the head. That way, I thought possibly I could finish him that way, but that was illegal. The only time you were allowed to knee a guy in the head was when he's on his back, which, well, if you're on your back getting kneed, all you got to do is belly down. So that didn't look too good either, but somehow, some way, I got him stuck up in the corner of the ring, and he just had no place to go. And, hey, you got to be a little lucky sometimes, but you create your own luck. So I guess I created my own luck that night, and, I don't think I slept for a few days after that.
Well, it's like the old saying goes, isn't it better to be lucky than good?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
I think it's a combination of both, and it's part of the game. You create your own luck. So to get lucky, you have to be there in the first place, and to get lucky, you have to be prepared to take advantage of a lucky situation. But you can call it lucky or not, but I did somehow get him squeezed up in the corner, so not totally luck, but I was pretty amazed that I had him stuck up against the corner where he couldn't even belly down. So luck and skill, they kind of go hand in hand.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned earlier, at the historical UFC 100, which took place on July 11th, 2009, you defeated Stephan Bonner by unanimous decision. I don't know if you realize this, but that was actually on the eve of the 13-year anniversary of your UFC debut. Now, how special was it to get that final victory in what ultimately turned out to be your second-to-last fight?
No, that was I won. I got 4 belts, and I had some other highlights in my life, but trying to hold on at 44 years of age, just nobody wants to quit, nobody wants to give up, and I'm definitely fit that role. I knew it was possibly coming close, but after that win, I literally felt like I was 25 again, and I was going to fight for another 10 years, and that just gave me so much energy to be able to pull that off and do that. It was it's up there. It ranks up there with any of my other wins, because when it happened and how it happened, especially because I was losing the first round for sure, and I did go to the corner, and I was telling myself, oh man, if you don't come back and win this one, I'm pretty sure I was going to be on the chopping block, and I didn't like that idea at all. So I dug deep, and I found a way, and I had a good training camp. I left my kids. I went out to Vegas for 70 days, and I got 70 days of just complete training and some help from some coaches. This time I coached myself most of my career, and this time I had some help, and it was more relaxing, and people telling me what to do, and I felt confident, I felt good, and I felt strong, and it just worked out. But Stephan Bonner was no slouch. I think he won 4 fights in a row. After I beat him, I think he went and won 4 fights in a row. So, he's a tough guy. So I really had to find a way to suck it up and come back and beat him in the second and third round. And, I did. Somehow I did it.
Now, your pro career spanned 15 years. That's 15 years of brutal fights, injuries, memorable moments, ups and downs, and everything in between. In a sport where the average fighter fights for significantly less time than you did, to what do you credit such career longevity?
I don't know, because you got to add another 25 years of wrestling in on top of that, because wrestling, I consider wrestling more dangerous to the body than fighting. 25 years of wrestling, my body took that beating, and then to make it 15 more years, that was just me. I just didn't want to quit, and I was fairly lucky. I didn't have that many injuries, although they started adding up. I didn't have that many injuries in wrestling, and then as the body got older, they started adding up, and all the old injuries started coming back. So yeah, I was in a lot of pain for a long time, but you just block it out and you just go with it. You get to physical therapy, and you suck it up, and you make it to the next practice, and you keep going. And I just loved it so much. I just, there's nothing else I wanted to do. So I think I just made it happen, But in the end, I did end up having neck surgery, and I do have a hip replacement now, which I probably fought the last 4 years of my career with no hip, and I didn't even know it. The pain was everywhere down the whole right side of my body, but I just would get to therapy and suck it up and train and go fight. But then finally, after the Couture fight, which, by the way, is my most disappointing fight of the whole career. What a horrible way to end it, but that's the way it goes. I don't really, nobody likes losing, but I didn't even fight. I didn't even fight back, and I think I was a deer in headlights that night and overwhelmed by the situation, and didn't want to go out like that, but I was having a lot of pain at the time, and I just thought I was going to take 3-4 months off and let all the knee, the hip, the groin, the back, everything was throbbing, whatever it was. I didn't know what it was. I just thought I was going to take enough time off to let this stuff heal up and then come back and continue fighting. But no, when I got the MRI, it basically told me I didn't have a hip pretty much. The ball part of the hip was pretty much gone. And, yeah, they told me I needed surgery, like, pretty immediately. So I was, you know, that was it. That kind of nailed the coffin shut on my fighting career. Otherwise, honestly, I would still be fighting somewhere, I think, overseas or something, just because I love it. And I still think I could have held my own against, I would have had to pick and choose my opponents a little differently. I'm not talking about being in the UFC and fighting these guys now because, yeah, I don't want no part of some of these guys right now. I would have loved to have a piece of them back in my prime, but if I wouldn't have had the hip surgery and this and that, I'd probably be heading over to Russia or somewhere and taking on somebody over there right now because other than the hip, my body's doing pretty good.
Now, you are to ground and pound what Royce Gracie is to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. NCAA champion, Olympian, UFC 10 and 11 winner, UFC heavyweight champion, 2000 Pride Openweight Grand Prix winner, UFC Hall of Famer, many accolades to choose from, but are there one or two moments that you look back on and feel as though those were the defining moments of your entire career, whether it be amateur or professional?
I can maybe break it down to three for you. How's that?
Sounds good.
You said one or two, but I'll break it down to three. And the finals against Don Fry, UFC 10, that was kind of, I think that was a defining moment for sure, that I was here and I'm going to be somebody to be reckoned with. And then when I did handle Dan Severn, I wouldn't say it was easy, but I was ready to go that night. I trained hard. I was prepared. And a lot of people thought we weren't going to hit each other because we were wrestling buddies. Well, that's so far from the truth. It's crazy because I didn't wear gloves, and I don't think he wore gloves, and I didn't wear gloves. So a lot of people were saying, well, they're wrestling friends, so they're not going to punch each other. But no, I took the gloves off because I knew it was one fight. You know, when it's 3 fights in one night, you got to wear the gloves to protect your hands. But when it was just one fight, I think a bare knuckle does a lot more damage than a gloved hand. So I took the gloves off, and I would have hit him as many times as I had to beat him. You know, I love Dan Severn. He's a great guy. We're good friends. And but no, I would have did whatever I had to do to beat him that night. There's a lot of friends that fight each other, but once that bell rings, no, the friendship will wait until the end. So there's you know there was friendship, but I was going to do whatever I had to do to beat him. So 10, Dan Severn, and then of course the Pride finals when I beat both champions. Those three, you know, those are big for my professional career. As far as amateur goes, winning the NC2A title was great, and then making the world team, take second in the world, and then making the Olympic team. You know, it's hard to separate any of them. I've been blessed. I've been fortunate. I've been lucky, and well, I did pay the price because nobody handed me none of this stuff. I did work real hard, and that's the bottom line. You don't work hard, you're not going to get nothing handed to you.
Well, I'll tell you, you paying the price did not go in vain because you've paved the way for this new generation of fighters. With the sport being more popular than it's ever been, and you just a year into retirement, do you feel as though the sport is in good hands?
To me, it seems like it's in great hands. Dana White, he does things his way, but look what he's done. Look how far it's come. You know how much. You know it can get bigger, but if it doesn't get any bigger, it's about as big as it can get right now. I'm sure it's going to get bigger. Hopefully, if it's in the right hands. And I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take to keep it where it's at. I'm already hearing the Cormier Bones Jones incident. I'm already hearing that people are saying that's going to give it a bad eye. So maybe we don't need that kind of stuff because I think the sport is, it's hard to clean up a no-holds-barred sport. It's hard to make it clean and acceptable for everybody, but they seem to have done that with all the rules they've added and this and that. But it's getting so big and so popular. A lot of these guys, it's hard not to let it go to their head, and they do turn into different people. And but probably I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was great personally, but I'm just one person. But the Jones-Cormier situation, I got a real kick out of that. I loved it, but at the same time, that's the kind of stuff that maybe he's going to give it a black eye. And I think they're doing a great job with the steroid issue, and they're doing a lot of drug testing, high-tech drug testing, and they're cleaning it up in that way as well. So as long as Dana White keeps pulling the right strings and doing the right things, I don't see any reason why it can't become the biggest sport in the world, because I think the whole world understands fighting. I mean, maybe not in detail, but most people can tell when somebody's getting hit more than the other guy. So everybody loves fighting. So there's a chance for this. There's a chance for this sport to be in almost every country across the world. So I think it's in good hands. Why do you ask that question? Or do you have something to say on that yourself?
No, I'm actually always interested in hearing the perspective of Hall of Famers. We've actually had, Ken Shamrock on here, Boss Ruin, guys like that. We've had Art Davey. And it's always interesting to hear guys from the old school. And I'm not saying you're old. I'm just saying guys that paved the way for the current crop of fighters. And it's always interesting to hear, guys like you weigh in on the future of the sport. So there's really no agenda, no separate agenda for asking that question.
Well, like I said, I'm not sure, but from what I could see, they're in USA Today every Friday, sometimes 3 pages in USA Today. They're on Sports Center now. They're on Fox. It's a legitimate professional sport in climbing the ladder. And like Dana White said, he's not going to stop until he's on the top. And if he holds firm with that, well, they should be able to keep climbing because they keep producing more and more stars. And what these fighters can do now, to me, is simply amazing. I'd love to be 21 out there competing with them, but that's not the case. But these guys are just incredible athletes, and I'm proud because I did come out there and earlier in the old school days. Yeah, we were all coming out there representing our individual sports, and I lived wrestling. Wrestling was my life for so long. And we didn't get no attention. We were at the bottom of the totem pole. No fanfare, no money, struggling to survive and try to be Olympic champion. So I was there representing freestyle wrestling, and hopefully I inspired a lot of wrestlers to look into this. And if you look at the champions, I think 7 out of 8 weight classes are former collegiate wrestlers, and I think that's because wrestlers are so much more athletic than people give them credit for. They're able to make they're able to make the adjustment and switches and learn the stand-up game and shut down the jiu-jitsu. And what they've been able to do on their feet is what's impressed me. These wrestlers, it's their footwork, and they're coachable, and they're athletes, and the stuff they can do on their feet now as being former wrestlers. That's what impresses me, because I was never able to really pull that off. I always wanted to be a stand-up fighter. I loved sparring in practice. It was fun, and I usually did pretty good. Probably my partners weren't that good. Maybe that's why. But once the bell rung, something just overtook me, and I just wasn't. I seen things, but all I seen was a pair of legs in front of me, and I knew I could get to them, and I'm pretty sure I knew I could get them on the ground and do what I did best, ground and pound. So I wish I could have been a stand-up fighter, but probably lack of commitment and lack of training and lack of preparing for the stand-up game. That's probably the real result and the real reason why I wasn't out there trading punches. But that still bothers me. I wish I could have been out there throwing haymakers like Dan Henderson. I know I could have thrown a big right hand just like him, but I just never could pull the trigger. I did it in practice a few times where you're probably not supposed to do it because you're usually training with one of your buddies. But once the lights, camera, and crowd and action came on, I wasn't scared to get hit or anything like that. I just wanted to win, and I felt my best opportunity to win was get the guy on the ground and take it from there. But I would love to got out there and throw some exchanges like these guys do now. It's just a thing of beauty, and I'm so excited about this Coleman Bones Jones fight. I can't wait for this. To me, this will be I think it's the biggest fight in the history of the UFC.
Yeah,
that's saying a lot,
I
know. That's saying a lot, I know, but I really think it is. Because people, Coleman, he kind of was in the shadows for so long because he was a strike force. He got a late start on fighting. But I've known him for a long time, and I'm not jumping on the bandwagon. I knew he was going to be one bad fighter from day one, and he's such an athlete, and he's so much stronger than people think. He doesn't have that perfectly shredded body that everybody kind of judges people on. That doesn't mean a thing. This guy is powerful. He's quick, and he's a good friend. So I'm just really hoping he can pull this off against Bones Jones.
Yeah, the matchup itself is monumental, but given the fact of what happened at the press conference and them shoving each other, throwing punches, I think they just elevated it even more. Whether people want to admit it or not, they're going to be tuning in because of what happened the other day.
Well, of course they are, but that's going to get a lot of viewers, and that's what hypes a fight. But at the same time, I'm hearing, reading some stuff that it's going to give the UFC a black eye, and they did that in boxing so many times. These boxers hated each other and did this and that at weigh-ins. That's the one thing MMA guys, they are mostly 99% respectful to each other, but of course you got, on occasion, you have a few guys that just don't like each other, and a lot of times it's even hype, but this is one time that it's real, and it didn't just start this year. These guys haven't liked each other for about 3-4 years, so this is real. This will make it so intense to me. These guys really don't like each other, and neither one of them wants to lose this fight. Neither one of them wants to lose this fight, and I wouldn't be surprised if you've seen a Ronda Rousey no handshake type deal afterwards.
Yeah, I think the unfortunate thing, and we'll let you go with this, I think the unfortunate thing is that oftentimes fans and outside media sources, it's a fight. At the end of the day, it's a fight. Now, whether you become friends after that, I mean, that's up to the individual themselves. But it's at the end of the day, it's a fight. I mean, what are people expecting? There's going to be testosterone, emotions. I mean, what are you going to do? Just go up there and give this a hug? I mean, it's unfortunate that it happened that way, but it's a thing that happens,
Well, everybody's different. If everybody was the same out there and everybody acted the same and went out there and hugged and shook hands before and shook hands after, well, it wouldn't be what it is. Every human being's different, and it is a fight, like you said, and these guys, They are two of the best in the world now, and they both want respect. That's what everybody's looking for, is respect. And I don't know. I'm hoping afterwards the fight's over. I'm hoping they can hug and shake hands and move forward. But I'm pretty sure there's going to be a rematch one way or another between these two guys. I think we'll see them fight more than once. That's what I'm predicting.
Yes, sir. I think it'll be the next great rivalry in sports. Well, Mark, it was a tremendous honor having you on. I can't tell you how much this means to us here. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with us here for a few.
Okay. What was this for again?
This is MMA Jam Live. This is actually our 1-year anniversary of this radio show, so it's an honor having you.
Okay, so we're live, or you're taping this and
what happens is it's a live interview, and it just afterwards it's getting recorded. Everything's getting recorded live on a radio show, and then a link will be available where you can play it back as many times as you want.
Okay, sounds good. Maybe you can send me the link.
I definitely will, sir. We'll get right on that immediately.
Okay, well, nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you, and thank you. On behalf of the whole team here, thank you for your contributions to the entire sport. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you. I appreciate that, too, and congratulations on your 100th show or year anniversary. Keep it going.
Thank you, sir, and have a good...
We need the media. Everybody needs each other. You know, the media, the fans, the fighters, we all need each other to keep this beautiful, beautiful sport climbing and continuing to grow and get bigger and better worldwide. It seems like there's no end to it, but maybe possibly it is getting saturated a little bit, maybe too much. Maybe it's going to be too much. That's why you got to keep creating stars, and I don't think we're going to have a short supply of stars coming out, because these new guys that are coming out, they're just wow. These guys are amazing, amazing what they can do, and it's amazing they can fight for 25 minutes and not even be tired. Well, I'm sure they're tired, but they're not showing it. They look like they could go another 5 rounds. It's pretty impressive, and it's not a place you want to be if you didn't prepare properly. So, I'm just so happy and thankful that I got a chance to be a part of this, and it was great, and I miss it. I'm not going to deny it for a second. I miss fighting. I think about it all the time.
Yeah, I could not agree more with everything you said. It's a tremendous honor, and I thank you, from on behalf of the entire team. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Take care and have a great weekend.
Okay, you too.